Now, I would like to introduce to you a person that needs very little introduction in these parts of the state and beyond, Mr. Lynn Spalding. And Lynn has been associated with St. Catharine College for 15 years on the Board of Trustees, helping to raise money for the college and doing anything that is needed to be done. His beautiful wife, Susan, has assisted for the last 15 years in creating and establishing the Mid-Kentucky Arts Community Chorus that all of us have enjoyed, not only us, but people from across the land. And that was their contributions to us and to Springfield and Washington County and beyond when they moved back from New York 16 years ago. So Lynn is going to come forward and give a few remarks and introduce our guest speakers. Mr. Lynn Spalding.
Take him seriously. Is this thing working? Yes. All right, just want to make sure. I have to take him seriously here because that's about the fourth time I've heard him make a few remarks. But I'm set this time. I've got myself my own little script here that suits this type for me, so that way I won't go longer than my appointed 7.5 minutes. Now, that if somebody interrupts me or something like that, then it's all bets are off. So, first of all, I'd like to add my welcome to everybody coming out on this frosty night here to this St. Catharine College Circle of Friends. And of course tonight, in honor of our two guests, Tom and Mike, Tom Leach and Mike. I guess everyone has had the opportunity to meet them, but they are the real guest speakers tonight. And so my time is short, so I will get on to my point right here. But one thing that I did want to do before introducing both Tom and Mike is launch into just a bit of a set of comments that actually I think really explained pretty much my feelings about and Bob Goodlet's feelings about this college. I guess the real question that I've always got in my mind about everybody in this room is that they may be wondering to some extent, why should I particularly care about the outcome of this event tonight, this fundraiser, and also why should the future of this college be of any great interest to me and to my family. And so what I want to do is really address that issue by talking about some of the things that have happened. So I wanted to touch on a few highlights tonight that are quite clear to both Bob Goodlet and myself about, and I think they are the result of some pretty clear thoughts we have by virtue of our close involvement with this college, which each of us would readily say that we have not only come to know, but to truly love and respect. The first conclusion that we have with regard to the question of why should you care is that we firmly believe that St. Catharine College, which I'll just call SCC, I know these guys right here think I'm saying SEC, but it's SCC, will favorably impact this area and our area of the state in a number of really key ways. But they have to really do with the difference of St. Catharine College and its mission statement and how it's differentiated from that of most colleges. Now, I'd say all colleges have as their mission educating their student bodies to prepare them for life that they will face as they leave. Certainly, St. Catharine College has that same mission as well. But this college, fortunately located where it is, as far as we're concerned, presents a unique opportunity for those in the area who cannot or won't be traveling any distance to go to college, anywhere. But this school, but for this school, they probably would not ever have the chance to prepare themselves for today's economy and for the demands of an educated and a skilled workforce. And that's where St. Catharine and its mission to help to prepare students with job skills, not only just a regular book education, but job skills that match the demands of the world that we now live and are required to work in. And President Bill Houston, with his background in workforce development, sees this educational opportunity and sees the educational preparation that is necessary in a really a multi-dimensional way. That's about the only way I can describe it. He knows the real need to collaborate with our high schools and our local community college here to improve the level of job skills of people coming out into the workforce. So SCC has done a number of things, but the one that I particularly want to highlight right now, how they have developed a joint venture arrangement with the local high school, which is now spread to other high schools in the area. A joint venture arrangement that allows students to take courses at the college for college credit while they're still in high school. Now, this has really a twofold benefit of increasing the number of high school students and high school graduates who will have the confidence that they can succeed at the college level while also materially reducing their financial burden. An additional arrow in the St. Catharine College quiver, though, is its unique healthcare program, which encompasses 14 different educational degree opportunities from nursing to diagnostic imaging. And the college has already graduated over 300 nurses who are practicing in our area hospitals and also beyond. And by the way, making a real difference in their own personal lives, in their own personal self-esteem, which is a very, very important aspect. But now we have here an exciting new opportunity in the diagnostic imaging area program, which was recently announced. And it is really something, it's an eye-popper as far as I'm concerned. And it really represents a significant forward stride in radiation therapy for cancer patients. And briefly, the story is this. You may already know it. But two scientists in Great Britain developed a new technology for administering radiation therapy in the treatment of cancer patients. The equipment, which is called linear accelerator simulator. That's a mouthful. Some of you couldn't say that, I know, after 2 or 3 drinks here. And it was obtained by the college through a grant obtained from Norton Healthcare in Louisville. And we think St. Catharine College was the first educational institution in the country to have this fantastic new teaching aid. And Professor Carol Sherbach, who is the chair of the radiation therapy department here, worked with an engineer at the company who came over from London expressly for the purpose, from Britain, expressly for the purpose to set up this equipment in the Hamilton Health Science Building. And then one of the co-inventors of this machine personally came over to review the setup and to give his final approval before they started to use it. This new equipment has the ability to correlate a number of pieces of information almost simultaneously to obtain a more complete picture of the cancer patient's status. All of this then puts our students here at the forefront of trained practitioners all across the country. It obviously enhances our little college here in the minds of outstanding prospective students from everywhere, and also potential employers who are looking at the area and evaluating the college that's there in that area as well. I think this is a perfect example of the what I would call transformational changes that have occurred and are occurring in the Hamilton Health Science Building, and quite a lot is taking place there. Now, Tommy Hamilton and Ann Hamilton Mudd are here tonight with us, and I know that their dad, Richard, for whom this building was named, would be very proud and pleased indeed. So thank you for what you've done for this place. The progress of St. Catharine College over the past 15 years, that's really the time period that Bob and I have been involved here. But the progress of St. Catharine College over the past 15 years, Bob and I are really convinced, is but a small indication of what that growth rate is going to be over the next, say, the coming 15 years. And the contribution that this college will make to Central Kentucky will continue to grow and to expand at a faster and faster clip as SCC continues to focus on education while also working to improve the quality of its surrounding communities. If we here in this room, if we, as the early pace setters, can get this ball rolling and keep it rolling, we are certain that our successors down the road will build upon what we can accomplish. So the future is definitely in our hands. So I thank you for your kind attention, and that should be about 7.5 minutes, right, Robbie? Now for the fun part, which is to introduce our speakers tonight, the real people for which you came here to hear. And Tom Leach and Mike Pratt are two of the best, and they're also, by the way, very, very nice people. I hope all of you have had a chance, or will avail you of yourselves the chance to meet them and have a chance to talk to them. Tom Leach, and I checked this with him just to make sure that I got the facts right here because it seemed like a really nice number. Has become the play-by-play announcer for the Cats back in 1997, and has been named, and this is really neat here, has been named Kentucky Sportscaster of the Year 4 times since he added Kentucky basketball responsibilities to his resume. And Mike, his sidekick, provides the color commentary on the UK basketball games. And Mike, of course, he played for the Baron himself, Adolph Rupp, from 67 through 70, and then later played in the American Basketball Association with the Kentucky Colonels. So he's a guy that has been there. He's been up and down the court a few times, and so when he asks questions and comments to these basketball players, he knows what he's saying, and he knows what kind of an answer he's gotten back. So it's great to introduce these two guys. Please welcome both Tom and Mike. And thank you very much.
Having played for Adolph Rupp and then played in the ABA, Mike would probably give you stories that would take you to tomorrow morning, I bet. We'll get a few of those out of him, I'm sure. We did one of these events back this summer down in Owensboro, right? Yeah. Split Hagen Boys and Girls Club. And there's always a lot of questions that people have, so we'll definitely leave some time for that and take questions about the Cats or something else related to University of Kentucky sports. So we'll just, I guess, kind of do what we did down there, talk a little bit about the team and a little bit about our background. We started the 2001-02 season, was our first season. I remember one of the first big games we had, actually, the North Carolina game coming up, was the game Tayshaun Prince hit 5 straight threes to start the game against North Carolina in December of 2001. It was our first year of doing games. So in this business, you got to be a little bit lucky too. You got good games to call, exciting games, exciting moments like that people still remember. Or, as I told a few of you tonight, we talked to Kayla Ledford once told me, you sound better when they win. And having lived through the Gillespie era, we know that now more so since John Calipari arrived on the scene. Right now they're in a very difficult part of the schedule. I mean, there was people talking about 40-0 before the season. I think some people even put up T-shirts, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, there's some sickles.
People that didn't sell many T-shirts. This is Cal's youngest team that he's had in a period of which college basketball is such, and what Cal's doing here in Kentucky, being able to recruit the best players in the country, and then they leave after a year frequently, that he's always had young teams, but this is the youngest. You think about his first team had Patrick Patterson, who was a junior, and Darius, who was a sophomore. And then the next year, you had Josh Harrelson, who was a senior, Darius was a junior. And the championship year, you had Darius as a senior, and Terrence Jones and Deron Lamb were sophomores, and those three guys had played on a Final Four team, so that was a nice bit of experience to welcome back. Last year was the youngest to that point, and now this is the youngest yet, with out of their top 8 players, they don't have anybody older than a sophomore, and only 2 of those. So it's not surprising that they're going to have a few bumps in the road, especially playing Michigan State on the 12th of November. The Baylor game, Michigan State games, not anything you get too disappointed about because you lose to a good team and a neutral court setting, and they fought hard and played well. They played hard and kind of left that not feeling discouraged at all. The Baylor game was a discouraging game because they should have won it. 9 points with 13 minutes to go. But I can tell you, you've had a coach too at the college, professional level. That's what young teams are prone to do, right?
Yeah, they really, the model that Calipari's tried to do, the model that he created was developed because of what the NBA's got. And everybody else in the country was a little slow to pick up on this. And his first couple of years, had 2 or 3 guys in each class that were good enough to go. But the model he has developed using these players, a lot of you don't like it, a lot of you do. A lot of people just say win. But the only thing he's doing is taking what the NBA allows him to do. And this model's difficult. It's difficult because you have new players coming in quite often. And you have to teach. You actually have to teach. And I think that's what people miss. With the young team, you have to break it down for them to little bitty steps. You have to teach them to take these steps. You have to teach them how to deal with difficulty when they reach difficult times. So he's created this model. He believes in it. He wants to coach those players. But the minute they change the rule for the NBA, he'll be back to doing whatever it takes at that point in time. So people want to blame him for this. They act like he created this. Tom and I get a kick out of that because he said many times to me, he said, look, that's not what I want. He said, I'd like to coach these guys for 4 years. How many championships would I win? And that's true. But he's doing what he felt he should do in Kentucky. Now, Krzyzewski signed, 3 or 4 guys proposed or projected to be one and done. Guy Kansas has got 2 or 3 there. He had a couple last year. Carolina's had them. Barnes has been here, gone, and one kid was supposed to be a one and done. We'll see McAdoo, hasn't panned out. Page was supposed to be a one and done. We'll see him Saturday, the point guard. So it just so happens that the confluence of talent and wins that Calipari had for a couple of these teams, a lot of players, is the outcome of his model. He hit the wall last year with some guys maybe that were overrated and maybe, what's the proper help here?
Immature.
He said it. Tweet, he said it, right? Immature. And it didn't work out. But saying that, if Nerlens doesn't get hurt, we're in the NCAA. We're a 6, 7, 8 seed, something like that. Because there were some games we lost afterwards that we wouldn't lose with Nerlens because he blocked shots. So everybody forgets about that. But that's why it's so hard to coach nowadays, and in particular Kentucky. People only decide to remember the last thing, or the last two things. They forget about the run-up. And all these questions people have now about this team, if this team develops, blossoms in March, they'll forget about it, maybe. They'll forget about some other losses. That's just kind of the way it is. And I think this team's got some potential. We've seen some awful good teams, haven't we? We've seen some awful good players. We've seen some great games. We've been very fortunate. We haven't seen one like the guy Auburn got to, or Vern Lundquist, our freshman, he got to do that game. But we've seen some.
We didn't get called the 4 overtime game. Everybody Neil Bryce did.
We watched it, okay? Everybody watched it. But, you know, when I look at this crowd, it reminds me, and I'm going to get away from this just a second. I went to UNC Charlotte in '75 with Lee Rose, Transylvania. Everett Bass and I was assistants. We got to Charlotte. We weren't in the league. We were independent. Nobody in the ACC would play us. We had to cobble together a schedule. Nobody knew who UNCC was then. And we were left in the equipment room with a couple practice jerseys and one pair of sneakers. Honest to God. Lee was the AD and the head coach. He said to me, he said, you know, we got to do something about this. We got to build this. We got to do this, this, and that. Go recruit. So we did. But what they had done at Charlotte, good, is kind of what you all are trying to do here. They created a foundation when the school started, athletic foundation. They created what's called the Green Jacket Club. Anybody, they take any donation that anybody would give, but for $1,000, you got to wear a green jacket, special events, much like tonight. It was a big deal. Now, it was a big deal because that school had 7,500 people, about 2,000 on campus. Little school. But people, not a lot of alums, because it was Charlotte College before it became a state school. Not a lot of alums. We had to go to people just like IC City down here that didn't go to St. Catherine, but have a lot of pride in this area. They went to these people. We went to them. Lee was the AD. He wrote a check for $1,000 and bought a green jacket. Paid for it as long as he was there. Every year, $1,000. When I was head coach, I did the same thing. I was making $36,000, not $3.5 million. But I gave my $1,000. I helped later on. My son went to school there, so I did pay all that too. But when it wasn't popular, we didn't have a lot of alums there. We had people like yourselves, giving the money, giving the time, buying the tickets. We didn't have a fan base. We didn't have alum base. So 77, we go to the Final Four. We beat Michigan, beat Syracuse. Syracuse along the way. Go to the Final Four. Then everybody wanted to give you money. Nobody in the ACC would play us, okay? But people came out and wanted to help. And from there, that was like the grassroots that you were referring to, how you start and the projections of the future. Now that school's about 20,000, 25,000. They got 12 on campus. It's a big school. It is a big school. They partnered with General Motors and NASCAR, and they have a degree in that area for people who want to be involved in racing. But it all started back then in '75, when nobody could give a flying flip about UNCC. Now it's just plain Charlotte. It's a big school, a successful school. And I still talk to some of the kids now, our guys, grown-ups, adults with family, that play for us now. They're involved. They're buying tickets. A couple of them give money. So what you all are trying to do tonight with this, it's home to me because I experienced it. I went out and knocked on doors, asked people for money. I had an AD, they brought him in when the league went to Purdue, and he wanted to sit around. He said, you're going to have to raise all the money you want to spend on recruiting. You got to go out here and sell tickets. I had no choice. He was paying. So I knocked on all the doors. I saw all the people, took all the notes, got some green jackets. But I have a great appreciation for what you're trying to do here, having gone through that. We didn't have to do that in Kentucky. Okay? We didn't have to do that when I was playing professional ball or coaching. But what you all are trying to do here will, long-term, give you some results. I saw that at Charlotte. I see it now. They have their own arena on campus. They got a little bandbox. We play downtown. The school is highly thought of academically, but it had to get it started someplace. So what you're trying to do here tonight, well, you will reap benefits in many ways. It comes from someone who experienced it. Just wanted to add that
That's
thought.
a great message for this crowd. That was, because it shows you can come from very humble beginnings. In a short time, you guys got to a Final Four.
77, we were in the Final Four in Atlanta, Georgia, and played Marquette. And this is really ironic. Carolina, Coach Smith wouldn't, and I'll tell you that, Coach Smith, after the story after I tell you this, he wouldn't play. Lee badgered him to death. Coach Rose badgered him to death to play. Badgered everybody in the state. And we ended up beating state in 76. We played Kentucky in the NIT. And Norm Sloan, we beat him in the semifinals, played Kentucky in the finals. So Lee writes Norm a letter in the summer. We'd like to continue this series. He never responded. He wanted nothing to do with it because the ACC was like a big cloud. They were big time. So we go into 77 and get to the Final Four. We play the first game against Marquette. And the second game was Carolina and Vegas. North Carolina. North Carolina. So all we had to do was beat Marquette. We're getting our game with Carolina. And I know Coach Smith was puckered up at that time. We were the last group he wanted to see play. Not that we had their talent, but he knew the motivation of our players. Because none of them were recruited by Carolina. We have to recruit some kids who really developed. And they listened and they played hard. We got beat on a buzzer shot by Allen on to win the national championship and retire. So we were that close to playing Carolina. And I guarantee you that if we would have played them, they had more talent, we would have beat them because the motivation was with us. Fast forward 2 years, and I'm now the head coach of the Eagles at Purdue. They got my buddy as AD, so I'm out knocking on doors. And they had a big fundraiser for the Tar Heels in Charlotte, because they're huge in Charlotte. And I get a call from a friend of mine who's a close friend of Coach Smith. Can you make it to Evans Auditorium, Ovens, which is next to the old Charlotte Coliseum, at 3:45? Well, sure, why? Coach Smith wants to talk to you. I said, absolutely, I'll be there. Coach Smith wants to talk, I want to talk. So I'm there at 3:30, 8 all the time. Coach Rupp time's always 15 minutes early. I'm there at 3:30. Coach Smith rolls in approximately, exactly 3:45. He says, Mike, how you doing? Golly, I really enjoyed playing against your teams. And, you guys are great. He's stroking me, right, for about 2 minutes. So then he says, would you do me one favor? I mean, this is Dean Smith asking me, who's never coached a game, to do him a favor. I should have known what was coming, but he got me. I said, absolutely, Coach. Whatever you want. He said, Lee Rose just bothered the shit out of me about playing. He said, please, don't do that. I'm not going to play. Don't bring it up. He was really nice about it, the way Dean is. He's passionate. And I looked at him, I'm going, what have I got myself into? What am I going to do? I say, no, I'm going to come at you at the paper just like Lee did. I said, Coach, I'll never bring it up. I never brought it up. 4 years later, I get fired with a winning record. The AD that told me to go sell the stuff decided that wasn't good enough. He had to win more. On Dean Smith's show, the week after I got fired, before they went to NCAA, he did a 2-minute deal about young coaches, me in particular, being fired with winning records and why that should never happen. He said, and this is true, they wanted to fire him, and the president stood behind him early in his career. And Krzyzewski was having some tough time, or had a tough time to do. He said, why, this is unheard of, why you want to fire this guy? And so when I said I wouldn't bring anything up, and I didn't, and it's tough for me to shut up, right? I got the reward on the backside. And I'll never forget it. Coach Smith was quite a person, quite a coach. So it's Final Four in '77 was a trip. It was a trip. Having not been there myself as a player, being very close, coaching there in that atmosphere, it's one of a kind trip. One of a kind.
What Mike was saying about Cal and the way the rules are set up with respect to guys leaving after 1 year, I have analogized it to when the three-point shot came into college basketball in 1987. And a lot of coaches didn't want, they were traditionalists, they didn't, they thought it was going to change the game, they didn't want to see 3 points for a shot that was not that difficult, it was going to change the tempo, et cetera. And Rick Pitino was an early innovator, if you will. He was ahead of the curve, saw that the game was going to change because of that rule change. And he adapted ahead of a lot of guys and had a lot of success and rode it all the way to here at the University of Kentucky. I think the recruiting landscape changed several years ago, and I think Cal, much the same way, was an early adapter and understood how it was going to change the recruiting landscape. And he has successfully managed that to be able to get guys to come in and sacrifice some individual glory for the good of the team. And I think the key element to the relationship is the honesty and the trust between him and the kids that he's recruiting. And he caught a lot of flack that first year, after that first year of the NBA draft, they had 5 players drafted in the first round. He called it the greatest night in the history of Kentucky basketball. Now, a lot of you are like me, you know, longtime Kentucky basketball followers. At that time, Kentucky had 7 national championships. So in my mind, the best it could be was the 8th best night in the history of Kentucky basketball after the 7 championships. But the point was that, and I think probably he would secretly agree with it too, that the point was that it was a great advertisement for what he was going to be doing to be able to bring in the best of the best and get them to, as that first team did, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, all those great players that were first-round draft picks, played as a team and still follow the university. They come back for games. They you know, John interacts with like the soccer teams going into the NCAA tournament, whatever. They'll hear from John Wall. Those were kids that did have a connection. They had a connection even just in 1 year to the university. And I think it was the honesty and the trust and relationship with Cal that he told them that he was going to be all about them once the season was over. So he was, and those guys got into the first round of the draft, and he was right there with them the draft night, hugging them all, congratulating them, celebrating with them. And so that then word of mouth advertising works for the next group of recruits coming in, and the group that follows, that you can trust this guy. He's real. He's going to do what he says he's going to do in terms of being all about you once the season is over. So you can give him what he needs so that the team will do well, and he'll be all about you once the season's over. And because there's the honesty and the trust in that relationship, it's worked, and they keep getting top talent. As Mike said, other people are starting to jump on board and see that, you know, that having guys for 1 year that are that good may not be a bad thing, because it's nice to have talent. And so Kansas and Duke and a lot of other schools that were maybe turning up their nose at that concept a few years ago are now jumping onto the boat. And that makes it a little bit, you know, more difficult for Cal when you're the early innovator in anything. When the other people start to come on board, it makes life a little harder. And so you see now that they're not getting every recruit that they want. Their guys go to some other places too, but they're still getting their share. And this being the youngest team that he had, probably could happen Saturday. They're going to hit some bumps in the road, but they should. You look at his first 4 years: Elite Eight, Final Four, National Championship. And if New Orleans doesn't get hard at it, like Mike, they would have been probably second or third round NCAA tournament team. So that's a 4-year run. I think about anybody would take any program.
Absolutely, and you know, there were a lot of guys leaving after 1 year or 2 years before Cal got to Kentucky. There was a spot guy here, spot guy there. Some guys left you never heard of again. High school kids came out. High school kids. Kevin Garnett was a high school kid. LeBron. I mean, there were high school kids coming. This is not. This goes deeper than that. What he did, and I'll tell you, there was only 4 people that went up to interview Calipari in Chicago. Lee Todd, Mitch Barnhart, myself, and assistant AD then. Rob
Rob
Mullins,
Mullins.
4 of us go up. And we're in his suite in Chicago interviewing him. And he is making a presentation like, I've seen a lot of great presentations in my life. You all may have too in business. People come in and make great presentations. I mean, hit it. This guy was terrific. He knew what he wanted. He knew he wanted the job. A couple of things stick out, but I'm going to mention one because of what Tom's talking about. He said to Lee Todd and Mitch Barnhart, and Rob and I were sitting behind them because I'd heard Cal stuff before, and you had to sell the president and the AD. And he looked at him and said, guys, here's what's wrong. When I was coaching at UMass and when I was coaching at Memphis, the name Kentucky, you walked in the door, I walked out. He said, it was over. You wanted to keep. He said, what's happened over the last 3 years or so is you've lost your brand. He said, you've lost the Kentucky brand. He said, I'm not afraid of you at all now. I'll recruit against you. Because he said, most of the times I walk out because you haven't been recruiting the right people. So he's talking to the president of the university, talking to the AD about a brand, who he's going to recruit. He next says, I'm going to recruit against UCLA, Indiana, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas. He said, I'm going to go after the same guys they're going after, and I'm going to get my share. I'm not going to get them all, so you're not getting any now. He said, that's what I'm going to do for you. What he's done, then. He's done what he said. There was only 4 people in that room that know that story, and they'll all tell you the same way. But he's done what he said he was going to do. He told us. He didn't say, I'm going to go out and buy players. I'm not going to go out and give them others things, or whatever you could think of evil. That's not what he said. He said, I'm going to sell your brand. I'm going to build your brand up. I will recruit the same people, these guys that you want to play against, and you have played against, are recruiting. That's what he's doing. So, as an alum, I do have a degree. Tom's got a degree. Many of you have a degree from Kentucky, or a fan. You've got to appreciate that. He's doing what he said he was going to do when we needed him to do that. I say that. So.
And, yeah, I know in the horse business, every year they run the Kentucky Derby, and all those trainers at the Derby every year, they will all tell you they're looking for fast horses because they know you don't win the Derby with slow ones. So that's what Calipari's doing with basketball, is getting the fastest horses that he could get. That guarantee you're going to win. They guarantee you're going to win the Derby, but you got a chance if you got a fast one. You got a chance to compete for a national championship if you have enough talent. Again, it's not the only piece of the puzzle, but that's one of the biggest. Football. Mark Stoops now is recruiting at a level that Kentucky's never recruited on before. And if you want to try to move up in this league in football, it's all about getting better talent. Because the analogy I've used with respect to football recruiting is Kentucky and the SEC has been in the same county as Alabama. Yeah, they're both in Washington County. Alabama's downtown, the biggest house in town, and Kentucky's out in the country for most of the time. Well, now, what they're doing in recruiting, they're getting into that same gated community. They're not the biggest house on the street. They're not even close to Alabama Street. It's way back in the back of the neighborhood. But they're in the neighborhood. And that's the way you close the gap, is you get closer to Alabama's house in the neighborhood and Florida's house, or whoever you want to talk about. But it's closing that gap in talent. You're not going to all of a sudden go from the bottom to the top in terms of getting talent, but you got to close the gap. And then maybe some of those other elements, coaching, evaluating talent, finding that guy that could be developed through the weight room or whatever. If he's close, if the talent gap's close enough, then you can do some of those other things to close the gap and beat an Alabama, beat an Auburn, generate some more buzz, get a little bit better caliber of recruit, get in a better home. And it's harder in football because you know, basketball, you recruit a great player, and that's 20% of your starting five. If you recruit a great player in football, that's 1/22 of your starters. So that's just a numbers game. You got to find a lot more of them in football, but that's what the most important, I think you would agree with this as a coach, the most important component to the equation is getting talent.
My junior year, Coach Rupp had a bad foot. Harry Lancaster became AD. He was not in practice. Joe Bean was always out recruiting. One of the best recruiters the game of basketball ever knew. Big Jim, he recruited you. He was relentless, wasn't he? And so, this is before you got there, my junior year. we have a practice, we're out there, we're like 4 or 5 in the country, we're kind of full of ourselves. We're just kind of fooling around, not going like he would like us to go. And he's by himself, that's why we're doing it, not practicing hard. So he stopped practice right in the middle. One time he says, "Come in here, boys." So we all gathered around him like we always did. You all know what the Kentucky Derby is. Before you can respond, and you're responding to Adolph Rupp, he says, "It's a horse race, boys." And he said, "Let me tell you something. There's never been a donkey that's won a Derby." Before we can say anything, he says, "And you all are a bunch of lame donkeys. Get out of here." And that's what it gets down to. Donkeys don't win the Derby. You have to have talented people. You have to have people that'll listen. And if they're talented and listen, then most likely to play them. So it's about getting those horses, not the, as a human buddy of mine that well off at a NASCAR team, he always asked me to tell the donkey story. He called the donkey. He said, tell me the donkey story. Tell these people the donkey story. So I tell that story 100 times. But you can't have the donkeys. You got to have the horses.
With respect to what we're talking about with Cal and the trust factor, as former coach Mike would attest to this, players, there has to be that trust there in the relationship that you trust in Coach Rupp, and so he can say things to you, and you listen to what he said and not how he said it. The players talk about that with Cal or with I was that way with Coach Brooks, who had a great run with Kentucky football. I just tell people that they lost in overtime to Tennessee in 07 and 09. Had they won just those 2 overtime games against Tennessee, they'd gone to 2 more New Year's Day games, and most likely Outback Bowl both years. And Kentucky, he would have had the best legacy next to Bear Bryant for Kentucky football. And it was a lot about trust there and confidence and believing in somebody the way these basketball players believe in Cal. Because after Rich's 3rd year, he was teetering on the brink of getting fired, and he knew that. And then the next year, they get clobbered by an outstanding Louisville team in the first game. Come back, have a couple of nice wins, beat Ole Miss, I think, at home. But then they go down to LSU, and they got beat like Kentucky got beat by Georgia or Alabama this year. It was 49-0, and it wasn't that close. It was overwhelmingly lopsided. And they came back, and they had 2 weeks off before the next game, and Brooks thought they were too soft. They needed to be tougher, so they changed some drills in practice. And Dickie Lyons, Jr., spouted off the Monday of the Mississippi State game, 8 days after they lost 49-0 to LSU. They were going to go down and beat Mississippi State just like LSU had beaten them. That's just what Rich didn't want. He didn't want to anger the other team when Kentucky's just trying to survive, and he's trying to hang on to his job. Because he's at that point, he told me later, we did the book together, that he had asked a friend of his about helping him find a realtor that he was going to have to sell his house at the end of the year. He knew what was coming. And so he disciplines Dickie by making him do some extra running. Well, the guys on that team, Wesley Woodyard, Keaton Burton, the veterans on the team, they jumped in, did the running with it. And these were the guys that had gone to Mitch Barnhart at the end of that 3rd year to say, keep this guy. We believe in it. We believe that he can get this thing turned around. And so those other guys jumped in with Dickie when he was doing his extra running. That Saturday they went down and eked out a win for Mississippi State. And then they upset Georgia the next week. They scored at the goalpost, and they went on to go on and win the first bowl game since back in the 80s, when they went down and won that first bowl game against Clemson. So trust, belief between player and coaches is such a big part of making the relationship work, because players, especially when I'm going to be there for 1 year, it would be easy to say, I'm worried about getting mine, so I'm looking out for me. But they believe that it's going to work out for them in the long run, and they will buy into what Calipari is telling about what he needs in the short run for his team.
Back is these young fellas all play this AAU, and they get their head full of you're the best, you're this, you're that, and they all think they should play in the league. Well, having played in the league and coached in the league, they don't understand how hard it is. They really don't. And there's no real reason for them to know. But what hurts them is people tell them they should, without knowing how hard it is. And so they all think they should play in the league. Now you've got to deal with guys. You just go to a lot of schools, not just Kentucky, and guys who aren't first team high school All-Americans, guys who aren't McDonald's All-Americans, guys who are maybe not even first team All-State. They all think they should play in the league. And if you cash a check in the league, you're a special player. It's always been that way. Back when there was 2 leagues, 20 teams, 10 guys on a team. You do the math. Now there's 20-man rosters with 2 guys on a travel, on an injury team, and there's 30 teams, okay? That's a lot of jobs, a lot more than when I played, but still, you cash your check, you're special. How many guys played college basketball who want to cash a check? Wanting to cash a check and thinking you should cash a check, or you will cash a check, 2 different things. So that, I think, in coaching, in this day and age, is the hardest thing to pull your team together. Players got to trust the coach what he's saying. Calipari never says you're not going to play in the league. He never tells you when you're going to play in the league, okay? Never tells you when, but he never discourages you. At practice, I've seen him chew on guys, just chew. 3 minutes later, he'll stop practice. We've seen it, put his arm around a guy, not figuratively, not literally, but tell him, you're the best. Tom, I love what you did. That's really what we want. Kid has dropped his head, or maybe he's mad because the coach chewed him. Next thing you know, he's put his arm around him. He's talking to him. You're the best. I love it. You're doing it right now. See what you can do. You're going to be fine. And that's his way of pushing, correcting, teaching. And he comes back and pats him. And they respect that because they know, or they think, and they know from experience, or they want to think before they experience, that this guy cares about them. He's got their back.
But he genuinely does.
He does.
And that's why it works. It's the honesty and the trust in the relationship. Let's talk a little bit about this year's team, then we go over some questions. I just told these guys before our broadcast the other night, I said, the Baylor game was disappointing. They blow a lead, and they shouldn't have lost the game. But I don't know, the one game with a young team, it happens, whatever. They look tired at the end, or they were not, I don't know. You go flat, whatever it is, late at night, whatever the reason they went flat, they lost a game they shouldn't have lost. That happens. But I look at more long-term issues. They didn't get any production off their bench that night. Cal said he played starters too many minutes, and he probably did, but the reason is any guy he put in really didn't give him anything to warrant staying out there. Andrew Harrison is struggling to defend fast point guards like the kid from Baylor. So he's got to find a way to do that. And he's a guy who, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's one of the stronger point guards in the country, 6'6", and 200+ pound point guard. Those aren't easy to come by. So he's got to find his way to use his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. And that is something that happens overnight. Julius is, every time he turns, gets the ball and turns, it's like somebody dropped a crumb on the floor to picnic and ants converge. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys that just woof on him. So you see him still turn the ball over too much. As the season goes on, we saw Anthony Davis in the last month of the season. Week to week, he would make significant progress. You can see something new to his game. I think it'll be that way with Julius. But that didn't happen until February. He was basically making his impact off catching lobs and dunking them and blocking shots. So Julius will evolve. Confident Andrew will. Those are some of the things that come out of a loss like Baylor. You think, okay, those are these issues. Those are more long-term things that are evident for this team. How are they going to address them? How are they going to deal with them? When somebody learns how to defend you, these guys are great coaches that they're going up against. They're going to watch tape. They're going to find out what you do best, and they're going to do their best to take that away and make you beat them with something else. So how do you counter? How do you evolve? And that's kind of what this team is working through right now. And I don't think there's any timeline for knowing how long that takes. Some teams it might take a week or 2. Some teams it might take until March.
If anybody's got an idea, come see me afterwards. Tom and I will represent you. We'll go to Calipari, we'll sell it to him, then we'll go to Krzyzewski and sell it to him. We'll go to Kansas, they need some help, we'll make $1 million. We'll donate part of it to you. Yeah, this team, they're going to go only as far as their defense progresses. If their defense progresses, they'll be a factor. And they need offensively to develop more than just Julius Randle. as a difference maker, a guy that can make a play not only for himself but for his teammates. Those two things, I think, will dictate how far they come.
I think, look back at the 2011 team, we saw early at Maui, Brandon Knight was awful as a point guard out of Maui, especially against Connecticut. Against, like, I was looking at yesterday, 8 turnovers. And the reason I was looking at it is I was looking at all the flack that Andrew Harrison creates. Well, you know, with all the hype comes pressure and expectation, so that goes with the territory. But I was looking at Brandon Knight's numbers through, what's Kentucky playing now? 9 games. 9 games. Brandon Knight's numbers almost in every category, field goal percentage, turnovers, assists, Andrew Harrison was good. That team in 2011 turned out pretty well. Was one missed shot away from playing in the championship game, and I firmly believe they would have won it if they got past Connecticut and lose by 1. That was a team that couldn't win a close game. Lost 6 conference games, and every close game they lost. I remember we were at Arkansas, finally, kind of like the last straw. I figured they lost an overtime, 1-point game at Arkansas to a very mediocre Arkansas team, and you thought, you know, it's just, they just can't win a close game. Maybe it's just not going to happen for these guys. Well, the next week, Kentucky comes back home, and they're playing Vanderbilt on a Tuesday night game. And I think it was Jimmy Dykes maybe was there doing the game for TV. He was at the shoot-around, where they have their game day practice of about an hour. And after it was over, I was talking to him and said, what's the best shoot-around that I've seen them have this season? Because these guys come in and out at different points of the season, so they kind of see different markers of progress from when they saw them 2 weeks ago or a month ago. And they went out and beat Vanderbilt. And then Florida comes in next on maybe that was Vanderbilt's a Saturday, Florida's maybe like a Tuesday night. And Bob Markham, a former AD, longtime buddy of Calipari's, was coming to a shoot-around regularly then. And after that shoot-around, that game day of the Florida game, Bob said, boy, that's the best shoot-around they've had all season. Well, suddenly starting to maybe get it in practice. I think they won a close game, fairly close game at home against Florida. But it was 2 home games. It's a rough arena factor, right? Well, then they go down to Tennessee, and they played the worst half they probably played all year. And then they come back out, and on the road, they come from behind and win a close game at Tennessee. And then they go to the postseason, and they couldn't lose a close game. Princeton in the NCAA tournament had a beat. Brandon Knight hits the game winner to win the game. Brandon Knight's sensational. Plays one of his best games of the year, and they upset Ohio State, which was the #1 seed in the East Regional. Point being is, that was the same team back in November that had a point guard who was awful. And there's no way he's going to be 1 and done. And he was, the 6th pick in the draft by the end of the year. So point being is, you kind of get caught up in the moment. You pull back and look at kind of the history of this thing and understand that, yeah, I know last season didn't work out well, so there's no guarantee it's going to happen. But over the course of 4 years, the track record suggests these guys are going to get a lot better between now and March.
Let's open it up for some questions. We've talked all week, we talked forever.
The tenacity, how they kept coming back, and Mike and I are sitting there waiting to, think we're going to go on the air here in a minute, and we're sitting there with, 4 or 5 minutes to go in regulation, watching the finish of the game, goes to overtime, goes to a second overtime, and how many times in those 4 overtimes did Kentucky come from behind? Looked like they were beating a couple of times. I think maybe 2 of the overtimes they were down 4 with maybe a minute to play, and they just kept playing. Something Calipari talks about to his players, I thought the women's players did that night. They just kept playing hard. If it worked out, if it didn't work out, they didn't hang their head, they didn't mope, they just, turn it over, get back in and try to get it back, or get stopped. They were just, relentless with the way they kept coming. And it paid off with a win, and just a tremendous, benefit in recruiting, because ESPN, I guess, had talking heads on, just trying to fill time that the game they're supposed to televise started. And finally, they were smart enough to realize, there's a great game going on, let's just put that on. And then, so Kentucky, the women's team, got a couple overtimes worth of prime time on ESPN. Matthew gets interviewed on national TV. So it's a great boost for their recruiting. And it all goes back to just the passion and the effort that they played with that kept them alive. And the payoff was a great, unexpected little perk for recruiting.
He is.
I don't think Saturday could be a game he could fit into much better than, say, when they had those 4 guards the other night.
Meeks is a big body guy for Carolina, 6'10", big guy. Dakari's 6'10", big guy. Neither one are great leapers, neither one are fast up and down the floor. This could be a time when Dakari gets some playing time to put a body on Meeks, do some things. You know, this could be a game for him. It was not a game for him Tuesday night. They tried him against Baylor, and Baylor's length bothered him for some reason. I think he's better than that. I don't think he was tuned in. But sometimes we look at high school stats and reputation and say, this guy's good, he'll play. High school and college are different. College and pros are different. And there are guys who can make the transition quickly. Bledsoe and Walt were out of control for 2 months when they got here. While Cal hadn't talked about it slowing down, and Cousins was slow to pick things up. About the 1st of January, all three of those guys just kind of got into a groove and listened to Cal, and they found their groove. They were playing the way he wanted to play. Okay? But there's guys that, you know, just overrated sometimes. It takes them a while to adjust the speed of the game. They talk about quarterbacks. The game slows down for quarterbacks. The game slows down for point guards. The game slows down for guys trying to dribble and beat somebody. Or it's going so fast they don't know what to do. They pick the dribble up or turn it over, charge, whatever it is. The game's got to slow. You have to play fast. The game has to slow down for you.
I think Alex is, as far as bench guys, is a real key for this team if he can embrace the role they want him to play, which is to play 15, 20 minutes and to have a stat line that has maybe 6 points and 7 rebounds. Just to be able to go out there and give them mainly some rebounding help and just to be a positive. Number one, first thing you want to do when you come in off the bench, particularly as a coach, first thing you want to do is don't make us go backwards. Don't hurt us. Don't make negative plays. And then if you can make positive plays, that's the second element of it, and a big bonus. The first thing is just don't hurt us when you go in there with turnovers or get beat on defense or something like that. That's where a lot of these guys are coming in, and right now they're not only are they not helping, they're hurting, and that's why they have to get them out of there quickly.
You got a lot of playing time that's available. I mean, why people think a coach isn't playing a guy, if that guy can help him win, is beyond me. I've always gone like, when I was coaching, people said, why don't you play? President, why don't you play Tom Leach? I watched him in practice. Can't do it. Or I said, maybe I should give him. I give him a try and he gets it done. Then, you know, or maybe he doesn't. Coaches aren't trying to lose these games. They got a pretty good job, you know? So he's going to play guys that have shown him in practice he can do it. The other thing I would tell anybody, and I had to come off the bench in the pros, you better make something happen. Okay, you better play hard and make something happen. If you're hustling, coach will put up a turnover. I can put up a minute. But if you're kind of, you know, soft shoeing it a little bit, you're out. I mean, that's just the way a coach is. Coaches to win. If they think I can help them, they're going to play. If I don't play, I go to the end of the line. So I think the verdict on our bench is still out. I don't think there's a lot of offense there, but I think there's a lot of rebound and a lot of opportunity to help defensively. I really do.
Question?
Another one over here? Yes, sir.
What's up with College Stein's hair?
What's up with Cauley Stein's hair? Everybody heard?
He's gone the Dennis Rodman route.
Willie's a different kind of cat.
We had a guy, Armand Gilliam, who played at UNLV. He was the first pick in the draft. And by 3 years later, we ended up getting him at Charlotte. We traded for him. We wanted what we used to call pass the trash. You got guys you didn't want. You tried to pass it, and the other guys are passing. I mean, you know, there's very few big-time trades in all pro sports, particularly basketball. Usually they're pushing guys around for whatever the reason. So we got Armand, and he had that sideways thing, you know. And Herman Reed had a little flat top. Okay? And so I heard them get into discussion one time. Armand said his hair kind of went like this, and he liked it better. He asked JR why he had hair like that, and Dean Smith approved because it got a little different than it was in college. And JR told him, he said, you know, I did it because I could do it. Willie does it because he can do it.
One cat, sometimes Cal says things in post-game, whatever, for your thing. Well, he's, you know, that's a funny line or whatever. What he said the other night was exactly what he opened the shoot-around with on practice on Tuesday. Came out, and he's talking, because the guys in around him to talk to him before they do the practice. And he said, I'm not the hair police. I don't know how many tattoos you have because I'm looking at your eyes. But he looked at Willie, he said, but if you come with that, you better ball. But if you do something that sets yourself apart, then you kind of like a quarterback that's out there on the island. It's hard to hide there. And Willie brought it the other night.
Yeah, much better than he did against Baylor.
Absolutely.
Do we have another one?
This is a very religious community, they're proud of it, and the story is that John Calipari goes to church every day.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I used to live actually about a block from Christ the King, where he goes to mass, and we getting the kids to school or something, and we would see him not every day. I wouldn't follow it, but it wouldn't be uncommon to see him pass Hal, going to mass at Christ the King. So he does it on the road too.
We got a manager that takes him, that's his job, is to take him to mass.
That's meaningful to some.
Yeah, no,
He's a father Flanagan type guy. He honestly believes he can help these guys. He wants to help them. And that's sincere. That is sincere. And he does go to church, so.
Ralph Hacker told me a story one time. They were on the road somewhere. This would have been with Greavy, Connor, Warren, I guess early, so maybe Jim's last year, somewhere there, next to last year, Coach Rupp was still there. I think this was, if I've got the story right, Ralph told me that one of the players asked him about, was wanting to know about trying to go to church on a Sunday morning. I guess maybe they're staying over somewhere on a Sunday. And Coach Rupp asked Ralph to find a church and take him. Ralph was doing the game for Caleb. And of course, Coach Rupp, he's glad to. And Ralph, would be a nice thing to mention on the air, too. Don't tell him that I didn't go. Yes, there's a question here.
Oh, now I say Calipari's a Steelers fan too.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan since I was little. And this Steelers are bad guys.
Somebody said something about a Rupp story. What's your best Rupp story that you can
Oh, man.
tell a family crowd?
You can. If I didn't have to drive home, I'd have another glass of wine, get Jim Andrews up here, we'd tell some great,
Somebody, those you got to remember this, one of my favorite is where Casey got sick.
Oh, yeah. Well, the old Coliseum, there was a back door. Ticket office, the front's here, ticket office up here, back door. And that's where Adolph came in his office, and Harry. He had a little locker room, and our locker room was tiny and over here. So that's where we snuck people in from Shelby County and from Dayton. Lloyd L., Bobby, guys Big Jim knows, they'd come down, we'd sneak them in there because the place was sold out. So we had a big game on a Monday night. So we go over and eat, and we come back, and Casey says, I got some boys from Shelby County coming, you gotta help me. I said, no problem. So we knew exactly when Coach Rupp would come, and he'd go out and watch the freshman game, and then he would come back, and we would already be dressed, and we'd go in the locker room, so there was a window there. And he came in, took his coat off, hung it in his office, came out, sat down and watched the freshman. Jim may have been playing, I don't know, the junior year. I guess you were playing, huh? No, you weren't there yet, okay. They had a good freshman team, whoever was playing. So he's out there. We know there's this little bitty window. So Casey goes back to I go back to the door. And Casey's at the second door into the locker room watching for Adolph. And we have this signal, 2 calls. He's coming. No calls, everything's okay. So he's standing at the door looking down through there to see if he's coming. I'm getting his guys in. They got to go right by him, and he's directing them down there. And I thought he was going to do like 4 guys. Hell, he had a whole Shelby County. He had, like 12 guys. So right in the middle of 12 guys, I hear this, like that. Oh, no. So I grab his guys and pull them up, and we're in the corner. You can't see us. We're hiding back. There's a wall here, the door. I've got it like this, and I'm thinking, I'm getting busted. These aren't even my guys. I know I'm going there. So now I hear Casey talk to Adolph. And Adolph says, what's wrong, Casey? He says, I'm sick, Coach, I'm sick. He said, oh, yeah, I heard you call me. I'm sick, Coach. Something ain't dinner, I'm sick. So Adolph shuffles off, goes where he goes. And then Casey calls again. We run the rest of his guys. We don't think anything of it. It was close. We win the game. So Casey, after the game, Adolph goes on his post-game show and starts talking about how sick Mike Casey was, and how he played sick and played so well. I'm going like, I don't know what he would have said. He may not have said anything, but we had a bunch of Shelby County coming through there. with no tickets. They just, you send them out, they went out, they just disappeared because they were standing room only. But they got in for free.
One last question?
Curiosity, you said it's getting notice as far as the defense will play. Then we got the new rules this year, more stringent. How are they adjusting? What are they doing in practice to address that and coach these young freshmen?
They started real early. He started, I think maybe that might be a little bit of their problem developing defensively. Instead of getting out there and just really getting up in the guy's chest, not worried about the foul, teach the aggressiveness and back off later on. He taught, and a lot of coaches did, look, we've got to play this differently. And the ones who didn't really struggled early. We didn't struggle with that. But I think at a certain point in the season, that catches up with you, okay? Because the referee evens out. We find our level, referee-wise, there's not as many whistles, et cetera. It always does. I think the game's better with it. But I think we lost our aggressiveness early. And I don't know. I mean, that's one thing we're going to have to get back. But we weren't the same aggressive. We didn't get the passing lanes, didn't get the deflections. And I think it's because he taught it the way he wanted to teach it and the way he should have taught it. But these guys now are so inexperienced. I don't know if they know how to turn it back up 2 or 3 notches. And that's what they've got to do. They've got to get into back. We're not quick enough and fast enough to break a guy down off the dribble. But we can play passing lanes. We've got long arms. We're really a long team. If we play passing lanes and anticipate, which at times we do.
Jared Jerson made a steal even by doing that.
Exactly, and James Young at times does it. If we get into doing that with Willie Collins back there and Randall back there, we'll be a much better team. We're not going to be as good as the previous throughout last year. The other teams were not going to be that good defensively, but we can be pretty good. We can be pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I've never seen this crowd so captivated so late in the night. The knee would be pushed out the window behind us. I'd like to ask Robbie Poland to come up and give a few remarks. Mr. Poland, trustee of St. Catharine College.
I just have a few remarks. Lynn, you got 7.5 minutes. Molly called me last week and she said, do you mind doing the call to action? I said, well, I guess what, if you want me to. I said, how much do you want me to say? She said, 1 paragraph. But real quick, I would like to tell a quick story on Mike Pratt. He's played in the golf tournament for years, as Jim Andrews has, and Mike Casey did, a lot of other celebrities. And the Friday night before, we always have an auction, and they sell the celebrities, so whoever bids the most money gets their choice of celebrities. So State Bank and George Spangans and Farmers Bank in London normally have gotten kind of a bid more. And so one year Mike was playing and we bid $5,000, Springfield State Bank did. So I got my choice of players to play with me the next day, the choice of celebrities. So I chose Mike Pratt. So we get out there the next day, we tee off, and we play along about 3 holes, and Mike hadn't hit a shot. About the 4th hole, he gets up on the tee and he hits one right down the middle, long and true. He walks back and he's I see that big grin on his face. I said, it's about time you hit a shot. I didn't pay $5,000 for you for nothing. Remember that, Mike? Now, I'm up here actually to ask you for your financial support here tonight for St. Catharine College. Your financial support is the financial strength of this college and has been. Many of you have been here, as Bill said, all 11 years. You've been very generous in your support of the college. The college needs your support. Without your support, then the college wouldn't be able to prosper. Look around at the buildings and look at this beautiful facility and the Hamilton Health Science Building, the new library, and the dorms. If it wasn't for your help, these buildings wouldn't be here. These students wouldn't be here. So I ask you tonight to please be generous, to open your billfolds, your checkbooks, and please to give whatever you can give, make a pledge, give. We certainly appreciate it. I want to thank you for all of you being here tonight. I know it's been a long night. It's been a fun night. Thank you, Mike and Tom and everyone for coming. And I have a couple checks in my pocket on behalf of Springfield State Bank. 2 checks that total $60,000 to start the night off. Everybody at your table, you have it's an envelope, so if you would please this time fill your place cards out or your donations, and someone will come out, I guess pick them up tonight. Okay, so that's all I have. Thank you all.
I want to thank Springfield State Bank and all the directors, their president, for your continued support. Thank you very much. And last but not least, the young lady standing in front of me was given a monumental task Monday, really started on Sunday, when Molly was not able to continue working for tonight, which has been tremendously successful. Angela was at development office of 1, and some good volunteers that went over to help. But Angela, I want to thank you for your unwavering service, always, but especially this week. Now, Bob Goodland asked me to do a total, and I'm going to give you a range, okay, because we haven't gotten everything picked up. But with what State Bank pledged tonight, we're going to be right in the neighborhood of $250,000. Unbelievable. And I want to thank everybody for their attendance, and Tom and Mike, the stories that you all told, and giving us up to date on the inside scoop of UK basketball and just professional sports in general. Thank you. I want everybody to drive safely going home, and thank you very much for coming out and supporting